What happens now regarding your journey? Well, we always like to begin just reading something to kind of set the stage. With managing and expressing your sexuality and improving your personal development is in your hands. It is how you interact with and listen to God as you engage in this experience that determines who you'll become. Our aim is to deepen your relationship with your personal development coach, God. Our time together is not meant to replace the essential connections you need to cultivate within your community. Everyone needs a place where they can be themselves, be fully honest in order to receive feedback and support. You need a support group, and this isn't it. We are here to enrich your relationships by offering insights about God and life that may inspire you to break free from ambivalence, encourage you to pursue new personal challenges, and enhance your interactions with those around you while aligning with God's intentions for your life. This is more than just an informational podcast. For knowledge not grounded in human experience won't lead to change. Our podcast is designed to be interactive. I frankly think the more others talk, the better it is. As true change requires us to acknowledge our need for growth, develop new habits, and take the risk of sharing our own unique story and journey. Frankly, I think without vulnerability, change is not going to happen. During this time, you will hear from us and others alternative solutions for you to consider. I kind of think that part of our role in helping each other is that God uses us to see what the next crossroads we're at in our own journey with God. And that a lot of times, when we don't see the road because we don't see the options. You need two paths to be a crossroads. And if all you see is a certain way, you feel stuck because there's no other alternatives. So providing alternatives for you to consider is key. But it's up to you to decide, it becomes personal, what is helpful and consistent with God's will for you. The nature of our interaction does not allow for a truly therapeutic encounter because we can't hear everything and understand the full context. So, what happens as a result is whatever you receive needs to be viewed like the Bereans, who kind of, if you recall, was a group that kind of heard Paul preach and then went and searched the scriptures to see if it was true. Let's seek God together as we pray this prayer together, found in Psalm 139, 23, and 24. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life. My name is Roy Smith. I'm an ordained minister with the Evangelical Church Alliance, and I also am a psychologist, a certified addictions counselor, and a few other things that we won't talk about. All right. And Nate Larkin is here. We're blessed to have him. Nate, introduce yourself, and then we're going to let Micah Freeman, run the show. We'll just sit back and enjoy life.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, my name's Nate Larkin. I'm a grateful recovering sex addict, porn addict, uh, a grateful husband, married now 47 years. I think that's right. I live in Tennessee, and I had the privilege of being part of the Samson Society, which is a international Christian Brotherhood, a mutual aid society for Christian men.
And Nate, before we let Micah take over and you and I relax,
Yeah.
can you just share, like, if somebody's new and
Hmm.
wants to understand, you were just telling me about a beginner's meeting or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
What
yeah.
would they have to, how does that work? How do they look you up and get
Yeah.
connected?
Well, Samson Society started in 2004, but in 2018, we started for the first time online meetings. Up until that time, all the meetings were local, face-to-face meetings, and by that point, about 500 meetings had started. But we knew that a lot of the guys who'd signed up on our website were not in meetings. So we started online meetings, but we wanted those meetings to be absolutely safe. Our experience had been on the website when we'd put up chat rooms and forums where guys could interact. Those places tended to attract sometimes people who had a different agenda. They were just there to argue or make fun or preach or flirt or something. And so we decided if we're going to do online meetings, we want to be safe. So nobody's going to get into a meeting until we've had a chance to meet them and give them a full introduction, find out a little about them, let them find out a little about us. And then at the end of that meeting, we'll make a decision about whether they belong. So you can get into a Samson Society, a virtual Samson Society meeting. We have guys now from all around the world join those meetings. But you can't get into a meeting until you've done a newcomer meeting. And you do that, there's at least one every day. You do that by going to samsonsociety.org and signing up for a meeting.
So great what you created. So many men and women as well, but men in this case feel stuck
Yeah,
in their life, and they don't see that crossroads. They think this is my forever destiny,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
you've given them an opportunity to see, no, it's not your destiny.
yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Micah,
Yeah,
what do
thank
you
you.
want to say for yourself? What's your role in this?
My role. Well, I've got a couple different hats that I wear. One of my hats that I wear is the director of ministry with Servants Oasis, where we seek to provide some guidance and support for our pastors who do so much and experience and receive so little for it. Um, I also am an outpatient therapist with Pennsylvania Counseling Services, and that's kind of another piece that brings me into our conversations tonight. Is seeking to find ways that you guys are seeking to grow, and how can we come alongside of you in that process of growth. And it brings me into a little bit of something that Roy and I were talking about a while ago that we wanted to hear from you a little bit about, to the extent that you guys are willing. That question being, we all have built in sexual drives and a design sexually. And some of those pieces we might find are healthy, and
Hmm.
other pieces might be unhealthy. But thinking of your own design, your own sexual design, your own sexual aptitude, we want to know, would you change it if you had the chance to? Would you make it different? And so take a moment and maybe think about that. Think about the experiences you've had. Think about the things you've gone through and the ways that you have felt and experienced that drive. Is that something you would change?
And keep in mind as you think about that, you can identify yourself on camera or not, and we
Mm-hmm.
could just hear your voice, which is absolutely fine.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a logic behind what we're doing here, which we will at some point talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, well, if it's all right for me to answer the question, as
Please.
Well, sure.
I would love to
Please.
step, because I feel as though, I've been 27 years in recovery now, and a big part of that is a desire really to alter and change that arousal template that was distorted so early for me. Uh, and pornography played a very large role in the setting that arousal template for me. Now, I'm fortunate. I wasn't. Um I wasn't, molested as a kid. I wasn't sexualized early in any kind of an intrusive way. It was more or less, it was neglect more than abuse. The fact that I wasn't given any kind of sexual guidance and or yeah, or healthy touch, anything like that. So, a desperate need for connection, and I found a way to meet that through fantasy. Porn played a part. I actually was unaware of how porn was now forming, reforming, distorting, I think, my arousal template in a way that I've really tried over the last 27 years. Here's one thing that really amazed me when I got into recovery and I was 20 years married. Um, and my wife was at that point feeling very neglected, emotionally neglected. I'd lost a lot interest in her. Uh, Really, I'd become indifferent to her because I'd allowed myself to become connected, to bond with other people. Porn had taken me to other people. It had just been a whole mess. I did not see, I'd lost sight of my wife's beauty. I didn't see it. It amazes me still to this day how, as I made some progress in sexual sobriety and began to disengage from those other routes of arousal, how much more beautiful my wife became, and how my sexuality started to swing back into a healthier and a much more satisfying and enjoyable as my ability to actually connect with her grew. But yeah, I feel as though that arousal template was distorted early through neglect and then through the influence of pornography and then all of the porn that I indulged. And then, as I really went off the reservation sexually.
Hmm.
But there's a beautiful thing about healing and growth where I really do feel that now I'm capable of deeply connecting, appreciating, and deeply connecting with one person and appreciate her beauty and enjoy that connection. Is it perfect yet? No. Have I banished all those ghosts from all those years? No. Is it still sometimes that it's not just Allie, it's a cast of dozens or hundreds or thousands from time to time if I'm not paying close attention. But there's an awful lot of progress there.
How does the instinct or the sexual desire? I like how you talked about the arousal, the arousal template, and it's like, okay, God designed sexuality or
Yeah,
sexual desire,
yeah,
and then how does that desire fit in with the arousal template?
yeah. I don't know, but I do think it gets attached. And I was groomed by pornography. So
Okay.
I was groomed by pornography to find a certain kind of female body attractive, a certain age. It was now, fortunately for me, the pornography that I encountered was all legal stuff, and so my arousal template was not set uh, in areas that would get me into legal trouble. However, um, because my arousal template was set at that 19, 20, 21, 22 year old woman who tends to predominate in pornography. As my wife aged, and we have 3 kids, she is a beautiful woman, but I lost sight of, I was blinded to her beauty. and became really indifferent to her in ways that were deeply wounding to her and impoverishing to me. I'm just so grateful now that I recognize the beauty of my wife. And as my arousal template has been realigned, I I can really, my body can respond. I mean, let's be realistic now. We're both we're getting up there. However, um, I think exposure has a great deal to do with the setting of that arousal template. And that's why early exposure to pornography is so harmful. That's why it alarms me that the average age of first exposure to hardcore porn, the kind of stuff I didn't see until I was a married man, the average age of first exposure to hardcore porn now is under 10 years old. That's setting an arousal template. And in the wild west of the porn world, there are so many aberrations to pornography that now we've got, I don't want to get too explicit here, but we've got kids who, who are getting hooked on anime porn, for example, which isn't even human people, it's cartoons. But their arousal template is set to that porn. And I've had young men tell me, I don't know if I can ever really, I don't know if I can get married. I don't know if I can ever become, physically attracted to a healthy woman. And I've had young men tell me that with desperation in their voices. And I have the joy of being able to tell them that this God has given us this plastic brain, and that change is possible, and that arousal template can be reset, but it requires, first of all, detaching from the toxic stuff.
Yeah, you can't play with it and reprogram at the same time.
No, no.
Yeah, it's a fairly stark choice. Any response, Micah, from your end? Just I know that you're thinking over there, so if not, some things I could say, but
No, I think it's interesting. I love Nate hearing your different pieces of how um I have never heard that word arousal template before.
Mhm.
And I feel like that really does describe it well of like this is the way our brain uh has been directed to enjoy things. Um and so I just find it interesting thinking, and I think it's helpful for us to think about how our experiences and how those early exposures to pornography can result in distorted ways of thinking and distortions in our relationships and distortions in the way that we view sex to be.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I appreciate your sharing so openly in that because it's so inevitably true.
to me,
And
the
that's
question.
how it's
Go
not
ahead.
just body types or anything like that. There are other things that can become sexualized
Yeah.
when we're in an aroused state, and that can happen at with our with our own willing participation. It can
Mm-hmm.
also happen if it's inflicted upon us.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it's real important that we understand that arousal template is not inevitably permanent. It is plastic, it is fluid, it can be changed. But it in today's highly pornified, highly sexualized world, I'm concerned
Mm-hmm.
for my kids and grandkids because that twisted stuff doesn't lead to deep connection that we all need for a full life. It doesn't lead to real intimacy. It leads to false intimacy and performance and dissatisfaction and despair. And then, and then these questions about, maybe I'm the wrong gender. Maybe I need to change all kinds of things in order to find this connection. And it takes people farther and farther away from that deep connection for which we are designed.
So there becomes a ritualized routine
Mm-hmm.
that becomes a sexualized pattern whereby life has to go through these guardrails like this
Mm-hmm.
zigzag in a certain pattern, which then becomes I'm satisfied if this pattern occurs. Sometimes objects need to be connected to the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or words or certain words are connected to the pattern. And while you're talking, Nate, I went, how do we know, okay, that that pattern is isn't okay?
Hmm.
All right. Or that God wouldn't support the pattern.
It's been tampered with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I think that when you were describing it, I thought, the pattern means that there is a loss of freedom, a freedom of choice because the pattern needs to be followed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And God would say that part of ultimately any loving act should have a sense of the other person's essence,
Mm-hmm.
a sense of a free choice involved, and probably the sense of almost anything can happen of spontaneity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because it's that faith walk with the other person you're making love to that gets you there. And yes, patterns emerge, but if without the freedom to change the pattern,
Yeah.
can there be love?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can the all and does the human mind know it? The good news is I followed the pattern and thus I got sexual release. The bad news is my own internal awareness recognizes that by the nature of the pattern or the enslavement, I didn't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't the whole everything was decided. There
Mm-hmm.
was no spontaneity and there was really no free will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And thus it was really with those ingredients missing, uh it was really an act.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pretense. It didn't and so on one level we think we got something, while on another level, we know that we know what it is, and
Yeah.
it isn't what we ultimately want, although we can get used to that's it.
Yeah.
To me, the sexual, to say if I was God, would I design sexual interest the way God designed it? Is an interesting question because I think with years of defeat regarding sexual interest, we start to hate the sexual interest.
Hmm.
Now I like how you took it to the arousal template,
Mm-hmm.
but we start to hate that part of ourselves that we allowed to get out to expand the arousal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then that's a step where we start to disassociate or we move our sexuality out here beyond us. Okay.
Yes.
And then part of what we need eventually to manage it is we need to accept that being turned on and aroused is okay
Mm-hmm.
because God designed that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now, the expansiveness of the template, that's not necessarily God's design with the way we did it. It is probably God's design, that we expanded the template so that not only does a 21-year-old female turn me on, but eventually a 73-year-old female can turn me on, because that is takes us through the life transitions. So even the ability to expand your erotic template could be from God,
Yeah.
both
Oh,
the
absolutely.
desire and the expansion of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think you
Eddie,
hit
I
on a
see.
key. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I see Eddie's hand. Wanted to
Okay.
branch it to him, see if he had any thoughts. Oh, muted.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah. I had to find the button. Yeah, well, I was thinking on the question that you asked if I could change my, like, I can't remember exactly what the question was. Change my sexuality or change my
would
sex
Would you change your sexual design?
design. That's, I couldn't think of the word it was.
Yeah.
And honestly, in my story, I don't think I would. Nate's heard my story. I think I know Paul in New Zealand. I think he's a Samson guy too. But my sexual story is in the sexual brokenness that I dealt with is I'm a registered sex offender. We couldn't have kids and ended up adopting a little girl, and there's a whole litany of story that leads to it. I call it the dominoes that led to it. One of which was I was born with attachment disorder. Um, my mom had a cyst growing on her ovary when she was carrying me, and it was the first time they could operate on a pregnant woman and not cause a miscarriage. But as a child, I didn't want anybody touching me, holding me. Most toddlers want everybody in the world to carry them around, and I was quite the opposite. And so that was the first domino on that thing. But had I not gone through what I had gone through, the shame I carried enormous shame because of what I had done. And even after I was found out and the ensuing divorce, thankfully our divorce didn't work out. Um, but I carried that shame into finding Samson Society. Had I had a church community within, when my wife and I were engaged to be remarried, I went to a church that I'd known the pastor since I was 10. I've got friends in that church that know my story and aren't scared of it. And his last words were to me were, "You need to go to church. You just can't go to this church." Had I gone there, I would have had a pseudo community. I would have had a group of men, a men's small group, more than likely. And I like what Adam Young said, that most men's small groups are adventures in missing the point. Because I came into Samson Society and I was able to be completely honest. Quite honestly, I tried a pure desire group and never felt safe enough to even tell my story. And it was in listening to the podcast that at the end of one of them, Nate probably don't remember saying it, but at the end of one of the episodes, he said, "We're going to have a registered sex offender on sometime in the near future as a guest." And I knew I would be safe there. And so my twisted past I walked has led me to be in safe community, to be, I can be completely honest. My wife has, after I me telling my story and walking with guys with very similar stories to my own, she realized that there are women out there that have her story because she thought her story was irrelevant. And now she's able to be open and honest about her story as well, which includes my brokenness. So I don't know that I would change it. I don't think it would serve me well to be different than I am. Thanks, Samedi.
Wow. That's something right there, Eddie.
Hmm.
That is something, brother. I wanted to piggyback on something that Roy said about being able to fully enter into the arousal without feeling distancing from it. About, I think you used the word dissociation at some point. And in my experience, all sexual acting out, in other words, that isn't true sexual, intimate sexual connection, all sexual acting out, that kind of off the reservation behavior that I engaged in, is dissociative. It takes me away from my real self. So true connection is absolutely impossible. During my years of active addiction, I got very adept at toggling that dissociative behavior. I would go away to be that person and then come back to be or pretend to be the person I wanted to be. But I wasn't capable of real connection at that time. And if I think maybe the point you were trying to make, Roy, is that if we have classified in our own mind that we have so much shame around our arousal template that we classify all arousal as bad, it kicks us into dissociation. Then we're kind of locked out of that God-given experience of connection. We have to be able to embrace the fact that we are sexual beings and that this is a part of God's design. And we need, yeah. Not sure where I was going. I thought I knew where I was going when I started that.
Well,
Roy.
it makes perfect sense to me because you might have agreed with me. So keep it up. That was a joke. But it feels my version of it. It's kind of sick, but you know, it when you were talking, it's like, guys, if we don't come to accept our arousal,
Yeah.
we are disagreeing with God at a very, we're saying, God, do it in a way that it is easier for me to express. Okay. Versus Jesus had the same ability to expand his template.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he lived without sin.
Yeah.
So his sin wasn't in saying she's attractive. It would be later on in the journey as you went past the arousal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of guys would say, if God would have put my sexual desire on an off and on switch, it would be a lot easier than the dimmer switch it's on. But it's on a dimmer switch. It can go back and forth, and sometimes we can figure out why, okay, based on us looking for comfort or some other element that our sexuality has become associated with. But it can even be as simple, okay, as winning a basketball game. Okay. Because when you win a game and we take your blood, not that we're vampires or anything, and we study the testosterone, it goes up in the teams that won the game, and it goes down with teams that lost the game. So a lot of times, pastors, we talk about that because pastors will preach the best sermon and then they'll light up as every female dressed up is walking by them. And they'll say, how can I preach a sermon here and go va 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 voom next, va 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 voom next, va 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 voom? And I say, you won the game. God led you. You did what God wanted. It came together well. You felt really, really good. And the body awarded you with more testosterone. And then you decided, where can I put that testosterone? Or how can I utilize that testosterone? And the arousal level you became more sensitive to.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell them, just preach lousy sermons and it'll go away. Or figure out another way. Which one do you think should work? Is there anybody that wants to join the conversation out there that will just verbally respond? And one of the things it would be interesting to hear from you, if you're willing to, is how it felt to hear what Eddie said about not just his struggle or his journey, but his conclusion, which Nate responded to, wow. And I was feeling the kind of same way about it. And I don't know how that the others of you responded to that.
You can also use the chat feature, by the way, guys, if you don't feel comfortable talking.
Mm-hmm.
Micah, what were you feeling?
As I heard Eddie.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were a lot of different thoughts, I think, rolling through my mind. Um, the development that it must have taken to get to that point. The I mean, let's just start there, frankly, because I can't imagine, Eddie, how long of a story it took to get to there. Like how long it took to be able to make the conclusion that you did. Because I'm sure at the start of that journey you wanted anything but it. I'm sure at the start of that journey you were like, yeah, this life is not for me. This is not where I belong. And yet now you find yourself being able to say that it brought me to who I am today. And that maybe even it brought you places where you wouldn't have gone otherwise. And I love hearing those pieces. Like it brings me joy, even with the individuals that I work with, being able to not go back there and not live in the guilt and the shame that comes because of there, but to learn and grow and become better because of it. And so I am incredibly appreciative of what you shared, because that takes a lot of guts.
I appreciate that. I'm reminded. I hear Nate talk about this often, and he talks about it in his book that I've talked to guys, uh, and if it comes to in a group setting, and you're gonna tell their story, I'm gonna tell my story first. I wasn't always this way, that's sure. The shame that I carried, I wasn't gonna tell anybody anything, because if you knew me, you would reject me. If you truly knew me, if you knew this part of my story, and I have been rejected. Uh, I've been rejected by some family. I've been rejected by some friends. Been rejected by churches. It's sad to say that the church as an organization, not people, tends to agree with the community that sex offenders should be dead. If you hear about anything, if you all the chat, that's what it goes to. The comments go to on a video or a story or whatever. But I found people treat my story differently individually. And what I've learned is a lot of that happens because they are aware of the darkness of their own stories or their family stories. They've got something that they've dealt with. It's funny how when you change rooms, your perspective changes. And I carried shame. I wasn't telling anybody, but I came in and I was a bit of a meeting junkie. My wife will attest to this. I thought I needed an in-person meeting. I didn't think I'd make connections on an online basis. I'm the only guy in Central Arkansas. And I'm thankful for those virtual meetings. I was doing 18 plus meetings a week, which is a lot. I get that. I was doing a meeting on my way to work in the morning. I worked by myself, so I was in the midday meeting and I was in a meeting in the evening time. You get to 18 pretty quickly that way. But by dissecting my story 1,000 different ways with the topics, because when there was a topic, I had to tell part of my story and how it related to that topic. and dissecting my story 1,000 different ways is what got me to where I don't have shame about my story at all. Uh, it molded me into being more compassionate, more empathetic. I list, and I've told this in some of the Samson meetings, when Jimmy Swagger was found out, I was standing in line with my stone. But now when I hear of somebody fallen or someone's story, like, and I can't think of Robbie
Yeah,
Zacharias,
Ravi Zacharias. Yeah.
when he was found out after, he didn't have anybody to talk to. He had no community. He was the Samson in his group. He had no friends that he could be honest with. And that really, it makes me sad that a man can't tell anybody. So when it comes to telling my story, telling your story, I'm going to tell my story first. Because everybody that hears my story that's not been in a circle of men being honest will go, well, shit, my story's not near as bad as his is. I can tell at least part of it. And I've had guys when I tell that story, and I've done the newcomer meetings for a while. I was a newcomer meeting host for Samson Society. And guys will go, well, I wasn't going to say this, but,
Mhm.
and then he'd get to taste of a little bit of freedom. And that's a wonderful thing.
You know, one of the powerful things that you said in your story it's what Micah said too. It's at the end of it, you've met yourself and come to no longer despise the you that made those choices. Instead, you met with that you and went on a journey to make that you different. And you had to hold that you, okay, and learn to love that you, even though you were at the same time saying that you can't be you anymore. And you were able to be honest and give yourself time to move through that journey. And I really respect that because it's 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 hard to go back and face what what is not cool to face about ourselves. And yet that's what God says we need to do in order to grow in terms of confession
Hmm.
and that kind of thing. And what I also believe is that a lot of times we need to. I'm about to go out here in the limb and say some interesting, weird things that it's okay if we disagree. But when you were sitting there saying 18 meetings, okay, which is pretty dedicated there, Jesse, Eddie.
Eddie.
You know, it's pretty. You were pretty. Um, you were determined and committed. Okay. But I was writing some stuff for a men's series that's coming out called Man Time and a devotional book that I'm creating. And a lot of times, we men hate dependency. We hate it. We hate when someone clings to us. Okay. And one of the reasons we hate it is we know that there are parts of us that are dependent. When I'm hating Nate's dependency, okay, and saying, Nate, don't cling to me and make sure we have all the right boundaries. Don't need me too much. If you need too much affirmation, you scare me. Or if you want a hug, okay, let's do it the right way. Okay. And we want to create that distance because but what we're afraid of is not just that person being dependent. We're afraid of our own dependency. And yet, what is addiction? What is pornography? It is a form of dependency. And sometimes, okay, you need to become dependent temporarily on a healthy source of nurturance so that you can combat the unhealthy dependency. And so if it's 18 meetings that you become dependent upon in order to free yourself from a dependence that suffocates the life out of you relationally, spiritually, how you view yourself, way to go. You created that dependency. And when we created dependency on God, or we created dependency on a meeting I need to go to because I sense I will fall back into enslavement if I don't do that, that to me is a healthy, nurturing dependency. And then eventually, when someone nurtures you, de- a dependency, when you get what you need from them, you'll naturally separate, you'll naturally differentiate, and you'll move on. And the only problem is if that person that was nurturing you goes, wait a minute, get off on your nurturance. So Eddie, you can't grow up because I, Nate, need you to adore me as the leader of Samson Society, then it's stuck. But Nate goes, great. Eddie can be his own guy. He doesn't need me because he took the nurturance and then he made it his own. So he learned to nurture himself, okay, and became dependent on God and his own healthy choices to carry him on. Now I can move on, and it's great that Eddie differentiated from me and became it. And so, we are afraid of dependency, and yet a lot of times if we don't replace a unhealthy dependency with a temporarily healthy dependency, we never get better. So we have to overcome that. So a man goes, you have to say, I need Samson Society. All right. And we're told, be Clint Eastwood, make my day, don't get, be tough, non-feeling. All right. And you're not supposed to say, I need that Samson Society meeting. And yet I go, wow, you're smart. Okay. You psychologically know you're enslaved and dependent, and you have picked the exact source, God, as he uses the Samson Society, to be able to attack at one level what builds you up so you no longer need dependency instead of sticking with the other dependency that enslaves you and drowns you.
Good word, Roy.
So I'm joking with Micah here a couple weeks ago, you know, and he goes to a certain school that I play with. Okay, this man is a great young therapist. He's my Timothy in my life that I've been praying for years, but I do hassle him. It's just part of my love, I think, or something I learned from my sick mother. I'm not sure which, but the idea among therapists is, Roy, you're a therapist. What happens if the client gets dependent upon you? And I go, the big question is whether or not you need it. Okay. If you need it, we're in trouble. All right. If not, if that client who didn't have a dad or didn't have a mother internalizes a reliable relationship whereby there is a need or dependency or an appreciation, feed them. And when you feed them by not feeding how you would do it, but following how God works within them, which is different from you, eventually, when they get what they need, they're going to dump you. And as long as you don't feel too bad about it, life will go on as it's supposed to be. Because that's the cycle. A lot of us, if we look at your lives, who could you depend upon growing up for the right sentence in a nurturing way? Okay, that somebody had your back. Okay, and many of those that are listening to this, it's not a long line of very positive nurturers, okay, that you had. All right. And for some of you, it felt like every day you woke up in a war zone. Okay. Or people who you would think by the role of being mother, and you would think by the role of being father, that certain things would come with that role. And yet what you got isn't what everybody thought they should get or signed up for. And so eventually, we need those connections with friends. And over time, if we build each other up right, when the time is there, we will get what we need, and then we'll go to the next person or the next person, and it's all part of life, and we don't have to be afraid of it. But if we try to get help without that attachment that Eddie talked about that was missing, if we try to get help and we don't attach to 18 groups, or Nate and his leadership or other types of buddies, okay, we're in trouble.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it is tragic that we have made dependency a bad word, right? And elevated independence. And it was my misguided independence all those years when I was, battling my addiction on my own that kept me stuck for so long. For most of us, we have to be humiliated to the point where we're willing to give up that imagined independence and admit our need and ask for help. It's, and I would say that for me, that still is a major challenge. I still don't like to ask for help. I'm getting better at it. I would I would much rather be the helper than the helpee. And what I have come to recognize, even during the last 2, 3 years, is that I have to be I have to be helped. I have to ask for help, and I cannot just be strong for everybody else. I'm not that strong.
It's interesting too, because we have this idea that dependency is evil,
Yeah.
yet we see that going all the way back to the garden.
Mm-hmm.
What was a major sin of the garden? The desire for autonomy
Mm-hmm.
or authority, that I can do it better on my own
Mm-hmm.
than I can relying on another person. And so it's a sin that we see going all the way to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yet find ourselves so convinced otherwise.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think we forget that we're designed for that connection, and that we're designed for that intimacy and closeness, because it's in that intimacy and closeness that we grow.
Yeah.
The problem isn't the umbilical cord, because to develop a healthy identity, we need umbilical cords. The problem is what the umbilical cord is attached to and how we process the good stuff coming across it, so that we maximize what we can get from those positive relationships and don't block it. Sometimes we pray, "Dear God, give me some people that will love me." God sends 75 people into our lives that love us at different levels, and we
Mm-hmm.
miss we miss the answer.
Mm-hmm.
God wants to bless us in some of our relationships and give us that nurturance that we lost in order to build our identity in Him, and we don't receive it.
And that's where, I'm a man of faith, but I have also seen the destructive effects of hyper religiosity or hyper spirituality, where me and Jesus spirituality, where, you know, I always said I was willing to trust Christ, but I was not willing to trust the body of Christ and didn't even believe in the body of Christ. I did not believe that that's a real thing. I did not believe that Jesus is physically present on this planet in the lives of broken people. But I found that when I'm willing to trust Christ and willing to trust the body of Christ, um, Jesus shows up in my conversations with messed up men. and I get the help I need as I'm willing to be to enter into interdependent relationships. I'm willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to ask for help. I'm willing to give help. I don't have to be the authority, and I don't have to hide.
I'll periodically go to a meeting and it feels so good to be with people who could talk about being messed up.
Yeah.
We may be messed up differently, but we're messed up.
Oh, everybody's
Okay.
messed up. Yeah. Especially you, Roy.
Especially me. I studied it. I could actually give myself a test and define it. I could actually score messed up.
I'd
As a
stack my messed up
psychologist.
against your messed up any day, brother.
We give everything a number, you know.
Yeah.
Anybody want to comment on what is going on that you hear us talking about today? Because if not, we're working really, really hard, and we get it when someone talks. It's like, oh, it feels good.
Mhm.
Um, I would like to share.
Please.
Hello, Jesse.
Hi. Um, in reference to your question, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you asked, would we change anything our um about our sexuality, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Your sexuality, your sexual design.
Um, so up until like today, I would say, yeah, totally. I would I would change everything. Well, just about everything about my sexuality, and I resonate with like sometimes I wish I could turn it off, and but But to think about it, I think I would just I would change the circumstances in my life that have caused me shame. I think that's what I would have changed. And I think anybody would change circumstances that cause shame or fear or any block of intimacy, because I think that's the real battle, you know. Um, we were designed for intimacy with God and one another. And I used to be so angry with God about my sexuality, my, my sex drive. Um, I struggle with same-sex attraction, um, and I would just resent God for my struggles. But now it's like the the issue isn't sexuality. The issue is shame. The issue is the lies I came to believe concerning sexuality. Um, the lies, from the enemy, from outside influences. So that's what that's what I would say.
Thanks, Jesse.
Very well said.
Yeah, yeah.
Very
Yeah, I
well
would
said.
sign on to that. I would change the circumstances if I could.
Hmm.
Circumstances have been different. I might have made better choices, um, but that's what we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 12 steppers talk about the central importance of acceptance. But that's really where it all starts. Becoming willing to live in the world of what is and accepting reality as it is, and then going from there. Um, thanks, Jesse.
Jesse, and you don't have to respond if you want, but what helps put that, not bury the shame, because that ain't, what helps, what can help you, or what has helped you deal with that shame in a way that it's become less relevant? It's less, it's less oppressive. That you're able to kind of come to the acceptance Nate was talking about. How does that go for you?
So I have found that um so usually talking with other people about things that cause me shame helps.
Mm-hmm.
And but sometimes I feel um like if something is triggering something in me, I can't always identify why or what. So sometimes I gotta write and journal in order to be able to articulate it so that I can share it with somebody else. And I just recently went through a scenario where there was a trigger and um, I I didn't know how to express it to somebody without writing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any heroic parts of who you are that don't fit with the shame model that you're aware about regarding yourself?
Could you, are there any, did you say heroic?
Yep. I'm saying, you're good at seeing the shame and you're working through it, which makes good sense. And so I like what you share. But okay, but is there a heroic? There is. What are the heroic parts of Jesse? Okay, that contradict the that history that you've dealt with of shame. Are there, what are the heroic parts of you? See, because when you were a little boy, you wanted to be a hero. You picked up a stick and you pretended it was a gun, or you had a good guy and a bad guy, and you wanted to be the good guy. Maybe you wanted to wear a cape or some kind of spandex to fly into a situation or climb a wall like Spider Man. Okay. But God created all of us, but males feel it in particular, to be a hero. Okay. And sometimes we look at our lives and go, shame or bad is there, or bad is not there. So it's great. I, Jesse, felt shame, not good. I worked through it. Bad was there, bad is less there. But I'm saying, let's talk about up here. Let's say what are the ways right now when God looks down or is within you and says, Jesse is my spiritual warrior hero, where would you agree with God that now keep in mind, a lot of times when a hero can maybe stop a bullet, okay? But there's lots of ways heroes do small things that nobody ever sees, okay? And yet they're heroes. Being able to say the right words to somebody who's hurting. You just said some really good words in here a few minutes ago sharing. So what are the ways that you, Jesse, have been a hero and that you can work on to use your giftedness to even be more of a hero? So it's not just bad or the absence of bad, but in Philippians 4:8 it says, think on these tell me about your nobility. I actually didn't look up a book right now, okay, and say, oh, when this person says this, talk about a hero. I didn't look at that up. I'm listening to Jesse and I go, this sounds crazy. And maybe Jesse doesn't believe it, but I think Jesse could be a hero. He's coming across like a hero to me. But I'm not sure he knows he's a hero. Okay. And then I felt God said, well, see if he knows the different ways that he has been a hero. Because a hero takes a challenge and deals with it in a way that's not defeated, that he's victorious. And so, do you know any ways you're a hero, Jesse?
I think that like pushing past shame to be vulnerable and to connect with other people and to love in spite of that is is heroic. And I think we're all called to do that. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So you're a hero. Okay, now I know other people can be a hero too, but I don't want you to jump off and talk about everybody else because you might be really good at that. And that's called a block. And I, as a psychologist, see it. I'm going to block the block and say, we're talking about Jesse being a hero. And you came up with excellent ways to describe what a hero is. And I don't know if you notice it or not, because I don't know if you're looking in a mirror or not. Okay. I don't like to look at me because, I wish I had hair. Okay. But anyhow, when I was watching you, I saw Jesse not only talk about being a hero, I saw you smile.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw you like being a hero. And if you like being a hero, and you are a hero as you describe good things, and God says you're a hero, why don't you keep smiling? Okay, which means that you continue to think on those things, Philippians 4:8, and be that hero. Okay, because if you're a hero, you know what heroes do? Heroes know what defeats them. Superman knows I can't go against kryptonite and win. So I'm going to avoid kryptonite so that I can keep my hero status. Each hero doesn't mean they win all the time. It means that the hero, being the hero that they are, stay away from things that heroically defeat them. So I hope you keep smiling. And my prayer for you is that every day God speaks to you in the next week and you think about another way you're a hero. And then when you go, but you know, Richard's a hero too, and Paul in New Zealand's a hero, and then Nate's a hero, and you do all that. I want God to say, but I'm not talking to them right now, Jesse. I am talking about Jesse being the hero, and I want you to look up to me, God, and I want you, Jesse, to say, God, thank you for making me this hero. I get it. I'm not used to it because hero and shame do not fit together. But I get your message. You just told me out of the blue, or I saw someone smile appreciating me, or something else. And I looked at that and I went, God just gave me a message that I was a hero in that way. And I'm going to be done making everybody else in my life a hero, although we've got a lot of heroes on this. I'm going to say, yes, Lord, I accept. I, Jesse, am your hero. And oh, by the way, if you give me more superpowers from the Holy Spirit, I will use those superpowers as a thank you and lay them at your feet in submission because your love for me means so much.
I want to check in. Does anyone else have any thoughts to bring to the table or things to share with Jesse or anything coming to mind as we're talking about these things?
I was just going to say, and it's the same thing I said in the last one, is it's the finding out. What I found out about myself was that I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one. Uh, I was, I could be in a room and I wasn't the odd man out. I'm a natural introvert. On the introvert extrovert scale, I'm leaning more toward the introvert side of it, meaning I can be in a room with 21 people and they pair up and I'll lean up against the wall by myself. Uh, but learning that I'm not the only one was a big thing. Uh, Jesse shared a part of his story of same-sex attraction. Not the only one. I've got great friends that I've met through Samson Society that have that issue, and I love them. It's just like my brokenness is not the only thing about me. That's not the only thing about them that I see either. I see the hero in people, which was something when I first started in Samson. I couldn't see that aspect of my life. It took almost 2 years in Samson to get to where I didn't hate myself, and that's I could accept that I could change when I could accept that I was fine where I was at. So, thanks.
That was a mouthful right there, Eddie. I could accept what would say that again? I could
I can accept that I can change when I can accept that I'm okay where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
And you can put that in your next book if you want to. I don't mind.
All right. Okay.
Nate and Roy, before I move us into a brief moment of reflecting, I wanted to give you guys the opportunity. Any final thoughts from you two? Any things from tonight that are worth revisiting briefly, or things sticking out that you were hoping to share?
I do want to hit again, I think, on this theme of hope. I think the destructive voice in our head, this voice of despair, says, you're stuck. I think this is, Roy kind of opened at the beginning of tonight's conversation, talking about the fact that we are actually at a crossroads, that there are alternatives that we can take. And even when we think that things are not changeable, things like an arousal template that seems to just take us off into disastrous behaviors, those can be changed. But not until we accept the reality of where we are first and become willing now to ask for help, to admit our dependency, and to and become willing to to stoop to accept a new dependency on somebody else. It's it's been for me. This has been a wonderful reminder of key truths in healing and recovery.
I always hear, um, I mean, I always, when I see people vulnerable and share their story, and we had a couple guys do that, I am always inspired when I see individuals heroically moving forward in a way that honors God and helps others and changes them. And part of what we hope is that you let other people know about our time. And I ask myself, how many people right now could benefit from what we just talked about today? And I honestly believe the answer is a lot of people. And so if you let people know what's going on here, and then over time, test us out, figure out how you want to define yourself, your identity, all of that. I'm hoping that as people open up and share their stories, we can all kind of grow together as a different kind of church, that we are a body, that honors God and is real, and so that we all can quit pretending. We all pretend in various ways.
Yeah.
And frankly, we get sick of our own act. Okay. We pretend, and yet the imposter syndrome, books have been written about it, people have studied it, almost everybody is tortured by.
Mhm.
And yet, when people shared today, it just felt real to me. And then that helps me be real, and life goes better for me when I'm me instead of something I'm trying to be that I'm not. So thank you, those of you that are willing to be vulnerable and share, and hopefully over time, more and more people will come, and more people will see the benefits of being real in that way.
Mhm.
All right, we've moved in about 800 different directions tonight, and I'd like to give us all a brief moment for those who are wanting, and those who are joining tonight. What are the things we're taking away? What is one thing we could take from tonight to apply to our tomorrow?
Uh, G'day, Paul here from New Zealand.
Hey, Paul.
Paul?
G'day. Oh, sorry, couldn't be visible before. I'm just taking with me the importance of nurture, that Dr. Roy's alluded to. I think there's so many ways God is probably wanting to nurture my heart. I identify with some of the other guys in their personal shares tonight, and but I can see how that God wants me to let go, surrender my trying to meet my needs on my terms, and recognize that he does want to bless me. He does want to affirm me. He does want to help me to relate. And he will do that. Often nurture is probably the main way that he does that with other relationships with other brothers in Christ. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Something you can take from tonight to apply to your tomorrow.
I think for me, it's that I am a hero in my story. Uh, it's not the guy that ran across the battlefield and took out the enemy bunker. My grandfather had one eye, and so he wasn't able to. He got in the army late in the war, and he was an orderly in a hospital in Paris. And he never would talk about it because he wasn't heroic. Although those guys had to have, there was people had to do those jobs too. And so maybe I'm not the one that's charging across the battlefield, but what am I doing that has to be done?
I find myself coming back to something, and my brain keeps going to it since it was said earlier. But the whole idea that we are sexual, I think this came from you, Nate, that we're sexual beings, that we're designed by God as sexual beings, and that's a part of our identity and what makes up who we are, and that to accept us in the way that we are formed by God is to accept that piece of us as well. But that at times we tend to have a negative view of our sexuality, and I was thinking about that a little bit, and what causes us to lean in that direction. And I almost wonder if it could be related to some of those earlier distorted experiences, or those difficult portions of our lives that make it difficult to recognize the normal from the not normal. And so then we find ourselves in our body trying to make up for that lack of knowledge by simply disliking all of it and overcompensating, as a sort of overcomplicated protector. And so I think I find myself thinking through what are the protectors that are no longer serving their purpose. Because I think that's a very valuable question for us to consider, is what from our earlier experiences, what of those protectors from those earlier experiences are now serving us in a negative way?
Yeah, there are some therapists, for example, who'll even talk about, and this becomes relevant for those of us who are in recovery from compulsive sexual behavior. We can go all the way to sexual anorexia and try to disown our own bodies and our own sexual drives. And that in itself is minimizing and dehumanizing. It's much more difficult, really, to come back to the middle. And I don't think any of us can do it alone. But it's conversations like this can really help. I'll tell you what, when I'm just in my own head and the only conversation I'm having is with me, I can lose sight of the horizon like a pilot who gets into a death dive and can't get out of it. I can run myself right into the ground. It really helps for me to put those thoughts out there and listen to the thoughts of others. And it's one of the reasons why I'm grateful for the conversations we have on this podcast. We all need to look out the window, and we need to hear the voices of other people.
When we end these, and I'm going to read something in a second, we will always have a one last takeaway offer. And whether you respond verbally or in the chat, why we're doing that is we men have busy lives and lots of times get distracted by different things. And when we sit there and say, this is what I got, and we say it out loud verbally, or in a chat and typing, it solidifies what you said, and it's more likely to become internalized down the road. So you will get more benefit from our time together. So that's going to be part of our ritual. And whether you want to take advantage of that to be able to help yourself or not is up to you. But we're going to always offer it, because if we say that one or two things, it kind of locks it in a little more than if it's just in our heads and we haven't underlined it in any way. We need to wrap up our podcast for today, but the good news is Jesus continues to finish his good work within you. As he transforms you, you'll begin to see life's biggest challenges as holy moments. I felt some of the sharing today from everyone. I felt holy moments in various ways as people shared. Acknowledging our sinful choices, emotional struggles, and relational difficulties isn't easy. Today's holy moment prompted us to reflect closely on our responsibilities, allowing us to collectively seek God's strength for change. Please feel free to invite anyone you know who might benefit from these discussions. In fact, you will get some information that there is going to be next week is one on Married Well. I think a month from now, give or take, you'll be invited. There's one that we're going to deal with more drug and alcohol addiction, although sex addiction, it would all fit together as well. We're adding another one. May God bless you with the strength to practice Ephesians 4:2 and 3 daily. Always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourself united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. Now remember, God is quite the conversationalist, so talk and listen to God today. Take care, gentlemen.